Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I have a wonderful Kansas City nonprofit in the studio today. I have Kim Harbur, who is the co-founder of Gift of Life, and I have Kirsten Finn, who is a program director for Gift of Life. This is a nonprofit here that has been around for almost 30 years, and it is not often that I can say that I am talking to someone whose job is literally saving lives. We get into the power of being an organ donor. We talk about stories, transplant stories, with Kim, the co-founder, having her own personal family story about their 5-month-old who needed a liver transplant. And we talk about how that led her and her husband to start this nonprofit in KC, which has since spread its wings coast to coast across the country. And we talk about how you can get involved, to become a donor, to volunteer, to engage with them in ways that literally can make an impact on helping to save lives. So be sure to send this episode to anyone who might be in need of a transplant, who might be looking for a new way to give back. And it's a great opportunity to talk to your family about the opportunity for you guys to talk openly about what it means to become an organ donor. So I hope you enjoy this episode. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast studio. This is really exciting for me. You guys had reached out to me, which is so great because I love learning about new organizations and really featuring nonprofits here and all the good causes and everything that's happening out in KC. So I'm super excited to share this information with everybody. And do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? And then I wanted to go over some quick stats to put out there really quickly that I thought would be kind of really interesting for people to hear about the topic that we're going to talk about.
Sure. So, my name is Kim Harbur. I'm the co-founder and director of education for Gift of Life.
Perfect.
I'm Kirsten Finn, and I'm the Transplant Mentors Program Director at Gift of Life.
Perfect. Okay. So the reason I said I wanted to kind of start with some stats, which of course I found through your organization as I was learning all about the things, and then we'll get into the backstory of how everything formed. But let's start with the fact that over 110,000 Americans are waiting for a life-saving transplant right now. Is that right?
Yeah. The list can fluctuate a little bit.
Sure.
It kind of goes up and down. But if you think of Arrowhead Stadium and Kauffman Stadium being filled up at the same time, that's about how many people are waiting on that waiting list.
I read that, and that was mind-blowing for me to visualize that and think about that, right? Okay. About 2,500 or so live in Kansas and Missouri. So that's, of course, across the country.
They're waiting.
Waiting.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roughly 17 people die every day waiting for an organ, for a transplant. One donor can save 8 lives and impact over 75 more.
Right.
That's huge. And then over half waiting are from communities of color. So that's pretty profound. Okay, so we're going to get into this because I think that this is
Thanks for doing your research.
Of course. No, that's exactly what I do.
That's good.
Naturally, I want to know everything, going on. And clearly, you guys are going to tell, your stories about how you're involved, why you're involved, how this began, what'd you say, 28 years ago?
28 years ago.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and start with that story to kind of share how Gift of Life came to be. And I think what everybody needs to know is that this is a great call to action podcast episode because you can go and immediately do something about it to impact someone, save a life, et cetera. So let's get into your story.
Well, I'm from Kansas City, and so is my husband. And I had a completely different career prior to this. For 23 years, I owned a dance studio, which is very different. Ooh. All ballerinas turn into organ donor advocates, I think.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
that's what I've heard. And so through what happened was we had our first child was born, and he was born perfectly healthy. And 16 months later, our second child came along, and his name is Luke, and he was born with liver failure. His bile ducts did not develop from birth, and that throws toxins into your system. And he went into liver failure as a baby. So we went on the national waiting list at 5 months old, and then he did receive a life-saving liver transplant at 11 months old, and he will be 31. That's the good part, in July. So it'll be 30 years, June 20th, he received his transplant. And so through that experience, we reflected back on our own lives. No one had ever talked to us about organ donation, and we kind of get around in the community. And so we decided, my husband decided that he came to me with the idea of starting a nonprofit. And I said, okay. I knew nothing about a nonprofit. He didn't either.
Sure.
And so we started with the two of us. We put a little bit of our own money in. We developed a board of directors and on our way. Most of the time when someone starts a nonprofit, it lasts 10 years.
Okay.
That's about what grassroots nonprofits do. We are now on our 28th year.
Props to you guys.
We started with the two of us. Last year, almost 360 individuals volunteered for our organization. And we now have 8 employees. I have to count. 8 employees.
Enough to start losing track.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes. And so first 6 years, we officed out of our home, and then we moved into office space in 2004.
Okay.
And we still remain in that same office space today. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. So, okay, so he's 31
Yeah, he'd be
today.
31. Yep.
Did you know at the at the time of birth, or was it a few months later that you guys had figured out how did that look then? How does that look now? I'm sure it's different, probably case by case.
Yeah.
but-
So at 7 weeks old, we had him in the backyard and on the patio, and our neighbor came over and she said, "Oh, he's jaundiced. You know, all my kids were jaundiced when they were born." Now, there's different kinds of jaundice. There's the newborn jaundice, and there's the jaundice that lingers a little later. You don't want the linger later one, and that's what we had. So the next day, we went to the pediatrician, and she diagnosed him with something's wrong with his liver. She then called us that afternoon and said, "You need to get up from your work and go to Children's Mercy. I've already called. They know you're coming." So we went down there, and that's when it all started at 7 weeks old.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So today what you guys do is you're advocating for people to become an organ donor and then to get connected with donors as well, or what exactly are all the different parts that you guys
So
play
we
with
do
Gift of Life?
education, mentoring, and advocacy.
Okay.
So the program Lifesavers, and I'm going to have Kirsten talk about her program, but Lifesavers is a high school in-person classroom presentation where we go into 100 high schools, a 60-mile radius from about here,
Okay.
and we educate them about the question, do you want to be a donor? So when they're asked that question, when they get a license or state ID, they understand what is the question asking, and now I've got information about it to make an informed decision. We really don't ask them to be donors. We don't persuade them to be donors. This is information so they make the right
personal
decision. Yeah, and that program started in 3 high schools in 2003. We're in 100 high schools now with our program. And then we did an online version of that as well. That actually is free. All of our programs are free of charge. So the online program is offered. It can be nationally, but it's been used as well. And then we have the mentoring program. And I'm going to have Kirsten talk about that because she really runs that program.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah, you want to go ahead and share some more about that?
About the mentoring program?
Yeah.
Yes. So it started in 2008 after they were really successful with the education program. They really identified a need to support the people that were going through the transplant process.
Yeah.
And so we are now dealing with 48 hospitals nationwide. We're continuing to expand and outreach to hospitals where we have recruited mentors who are fully trained and vetted by us. There's caregiver mentors, mentors for transplant recipients, living donor mentors for those considering living donation.
Okay.
And so we get people coming in to volunteer to be mentors, and they're 1 year post-transplant at least and need a referral from their transplant center that they're in a good space to mentor someone. And then we go through a number of different practices to match them up with somebody who most closely matches their circumstances.
Okay.
And so this person can then walk alongside that person in their transplant journey. There's been several peer-reviewed articles that clearly demonstrate that having a mentor while going through such a life-altering procedure, it significantly improves outcomes for transplant recipients. And so Transplant Mentors is support for those families, and it's really important we make the caregivers stronger. That's a really huge thing as well for somebody going through transplant.
No kidding. Absolutely. So
And just
emotional
to
support.
put some context on that too, for your listeners especially. there's 6,600 hospitals in the country. We have 6,600 hospitals in the United States of America. Out of those, only 250 do transplants. And when I say transplants, I'm talking about what we call solid organ transplant: heart, kidneys, liver, lungs, pancreas, and the small intestine. So there aren't that many when you think about how many hospitals are out there. And we're very lucky here in Kansas City. We've got 4.
Yeah.
We have the University of Kansas Health System, St. Luke's Health System, Children's Mercy, of course, and then Research Medical Center that does kidneys. So we're very blessed to have that type of care at our fingertips.
No kidding. Are there 250 or so because there's a lot of red tape to go through? Is it a choice they make? Is it a funding? Or is that a loaded question?
It's a specialty. So you've got to have a transplant surgeon. You know, there's not a lot of those running around.
Okay.
You know, and then you have to have a place where the protocol can all be put in place. Organ donation and transplantation has more policies and procedures around it than any other section of medicine.
Interesting.
So it has a lot of do's and don'ts. I mean,
medicine, is it the risk factor?
Medicine does in general. Well, I think part of it is you're talking about a sad story.
Yeah.
A donor story is usually wrapped, not always, but often wrapped around a sudden loss of a loved one. Very sad. And that arc from the donor over to the recipient must be loaded with compassion and care, and the right way to do that. It has to be filled with thoughtfulness and ethics.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah.
I sat on the national board, the United Network of Organ Sharing, which really houses that long database, and we set policy and procedure for those 250 hospitals. And it's just really important that all those pieces are in place. And it's expensive to set up a transplant center in a hospital.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine.
Sure.
So does that mean that you guys are impacting people coast to coast in all of these hospitals, or are you focused on Kansas and Missouri in the 4?
Well, we started off in the 4 hospitals for mentoring.
Okay.
And then as that program, actually, to be honest with you, when COVID came, I said to the staff, well, why can't we just go nationally? Because we can reach out on the phone or, you know, now with Zoom and Team, you know, all the ways we have to connect. It's not just by going to the hospital and visiting someone. So that's when it started kind of mushrooming. Okay. That has become more of a national program.
Okay.
That's national. Our Lifesavers program is more focused in that those 100 schools in a 60-mile radius. Because you can't put boots on the ground all over the world, you know.
Sure.
That's just too hard. That's why we then folded it into an online program, which actually can be used nationally.
Absolutely. Okay, so going back to, you know, the high schoolers and the, you know, informing them to make their own decision about it. What do you find, whether it's, I guess, really a high schooler or of any age, are there any maybe misconceptions about what people think it means to check that on your driver's license? Is that where you should begin, by checking on your driver's license? And of course, I told you in doing my prep for this, I went onto your site. I became an official donor. So I registered. I sent it to my family.
Good for you.
Yeah, because I mean, I've personally always been an organ donor. But so therefore, I'm not someone who's had any kind of question mark with it, but people do. So what are those question marks that you might want to talk about for people who are like, ooh, I'm too scared. I have to face the idea of death, or what that looks like?
Well, I think especially with high school students, they're not going to die, right? They just aren't, because they're young. That's just not top of mind.
Yeah.
But as I share with them in the classroom, they're going to die someday. We all do. Right now we're living our life cycle, but we don't know when that cycle is going to change or stop.
Yeah.
And this is one good thing sometimes that comes out of that sad story. There are students that say, but these belong to me. My organs are mine. I don't have to give them away. No, you don't. If you feel that way, you're not an organ
We are not
donor.
here to convince you.
You know, some feel that organ donation is interrupting their spiritual pathway of dying. If you feel that way, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Some see it as the greatest act of humanity. It's a very different viewpoint. But I think most of it is they just haven't learned about it. They're not educated about it. The family hasn't talked about it. And so that's the piece that's missing nationally.
Okay.
In the whole conversation of organ donation. And that's one of the things that we bring to the forefront. I mean, we've educated 500,000 high school students over the years.
Huge.
So now they're parents, right?
Right.
And then their kids, so on and so forth. So Kansas City has one of the highest organ donor rates in the nation.
Thanks to you guys.
And part of it is the work of Gift of Life.
Yeah.
Part of it is we have 4 good transplant hospitals here in Kansas City. And we also have what's called an organ procurement organization here in Kansas City. They're the group that steps into a hospital when there's a donor, and they facilitate deciding and testing that donor, what can be donated, and then they're in charge of transporting that organ to where the recipient is. There's about 56 of those. They're called organ procurement organizations, and ours here in Westwood, Kansas ranks in probably the top 5 for best practices. So we have all that going for us.
Right.
It's not just us. It's the team effort across the community.
So you had mentioned, and I had this, of what can be donated. And is it 2 categories, organs and tissue? And you mentioned organs, just to repeat that: heart, kidneys, liver, lungs, pancreas, small intestine. And then tissue is eyes, skin, bones, heart valves, veins, connective tissue. When someone decides that they want to become an organ donor, and maybe I went through this and forgot what I checked, but do you decide it's like all or nothing, or are there certain categories of what you can decide to be a donor for?
Well, when we check it here in Kansas, we're saying we want to donate everything.
Yeah.
We want to donate everything. Now, when someone is a minor and they pass away, their parent or guardian would make the final decision for them to be or not to be a donor, regardless of what they have on their driver's license or what their age is.
Sure.
And then when let's say someone says, I don't want to be a donor, then there's no little heart on their driver's license or whatever the symbol the state might have. Ours has a heart. Then if they can be a donor when they pass away, the decision falls back to their family to make that final decision on their behalf. That's why that conversation is so important. But when you check it on the license, you're saying, please take whatever's healthy enough to be given to someone else.
Right. So what can families be talking about to ensure that, whether it's grandparents who might be closer to death, or children coming into the family, but they want to be a part of this? How do you guide families to talk about this as a family? Like, for example, we'll just use me, my husband, and we have 2 daughters that are 9 and almost 12. Is this a discussion that we should be having to educate them? Should I wait? What does that look like? Or is that just a personal decision?
I think absolutely it's a conversation that's important to have.
Yeah.
My twins are going to be turning 16 in November, and just recently going through their driver's education, the conversation came up, when they both elected to be a donor, but they had that information in front of them so they could make a personal decision that reflected their values and what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I think families being open about that. I think when a child dies or somebody dies and that decision has to be made, it puts an enormous amount of stress on the family if their intentions aren't clearly known. And so having conversations surrounding that can significantly reduce the stress of the decision making that has to take place.
Is it wrong to assume the majority of families might be taken aback by that? I mean, because not all of them are having those discussions today, or obviously the work that you guys have been doing, maybe there's more that are doing that proactively than
I think there are. I think it's being more proactive, but our goal, our kind of message with the Lifesavers program, which is the high school program, is really about the driver's license. So we chose high school in particular. I think it can happen a little earlier. I think it can happen on a less structured level, planting the seed about it. And then as they get a little bit older, keep that conversation moving forward. I have 2 friends that have lost 17-year-old sons. One was a senior at Liberty High School, and the other one was a junior at Shawnee Mission East. These stories happened a long time ago. But I had both of those boys in class as freshmen. And they came up to me afterwards. I've been in their home personally, and they said, "Oh, Kim, we're going to go home and tell our parents we want to be an organ donor." Never dreaming that these boys became organ donors so quickly. So when these accidents happened and they called me and I went to the hospital and I stood at the foot of these young boys' feet in that intensive care unit, I said to myself, I do not know how any family says yes in that moment. No way. But the parents, they were so glad they knew their decision ahead of time. They all became organ donors. But that moment, as you were describing, is so devastating because a lot of times it's a sudden death.
Right.
And it's just too hard to wrap your head around it if you haven't thought about it before.
Yeah.
Our little donor was 8.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we hear a bit more about that? You can find some online, of course, about that, but I'd love to hear your firsthand take on what that was like for you guys.
He was an 8-year-old little boy from Olathe, Kansas. His name is Aaron. He just finished the 3rd grade, and they were on a camping trip in the Lake of the Ozarks, and he suffered a severe allergic reaction that his airway started to close, and eventually they had to fly him to Springfield, and then 3 days later he lost his brain activity, and when he passed, his parents made the decision for him to be a donor, and his little body was quite healthy, but his little brain function was gone, and when our brain stops, we die. You know, there's nothing out there that reboots the brain. We don't have anything out there.
Right.
So that's, and I will say our donor family, which we have met them all, which you can imagine is a very emotional meeting. They donated, well, they're people of faith, so that their faith was very important to them. But secondly, they said to themselves, if we had a child waiting for a transplant, wouldn't we hope someone would be out there that would give?
It is such a weird juxtaposition to think about both sides of it. And obviously you're speaking on behalf of the family. Do most people meet the families that are donors, or was that both something that you arranged?
Well, ours was a little different because we had what's called a direct donation. So that means that families might, let's say someone passes away and they're asked, do you know anyone that needs a transplant? They can say, oh, my neighbor Jenny needs a new heart. Let's see if Kim's heart matches Jenny. That's called a direct donation.
Okay.
And that's what we had, because I had a little dancer mom at my dance studio who knew my son needed a liver, and she went to their church, so she knew both stories.
So that's a little bit of like fate, though.
That's how the story came together.
Okay.
Right.
Very interesting.
But now I want Kirsten to talk about her son, because she had a bone marrow transplant, which is very different than a liver transplant.
So my son was diagnosed with a rare genetic condition at the beginning of the pandemic in Canada. And they couldn't treat him. They couldn't give us a timeline to transplant. And his condition is fatal within 6 months to 2 years of diagnosis without intervention. And so O'Connor actually had a cord blood transplant, which is a form of tissue donation. People can donate their cord blood from the placenta when they give birth.
Right.
And in fact, Kim and her team does an excellent job of educating about cord blood as well when they go out to the high schools. So he received a transplant. We had to go down to Minnesota to have that happen. And then it has halted the progression of his disease. He's still monitored every year to make sure that remains, and then monitored for perhaps developing the adult onset of the disease. And so in thinking of Gift of Life, when I saw the job posting, one thing that drew me to Gift of Life was the Harbur story, and was Kim and Nate's dedication that no one would walk this path alone.
Right.
And as a caregiver for somebody having gone through not a solid organ, but another type of transplant, supporting those families is deeply meaningful to me.
And he's how old today?
He was transplanted at the age 4, and he just turned 10.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys probably have so many stories from people that you've been impacted, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. It's storytelling on steroids at our place.
No kidding. Some fireside chats, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I also read you have something called the 10 Truths. Want to talk a little bit about that? Some stuck out to me.
Go ahead.
Okay. 95% of people support the idea of donation, but only 60% are registered. Do you think that that's a lot to do with just this, spreading the word?
I do.
Removing the fear or anxiety.
And that's a national stat. So,
Okay.
ours is quite a bit higher here in Kansas City, which is great.
Yes,
but,
right. Back to that.
That is a national stat.
Okay. Most major religions support donation.
They do.
You see that where people are perhaps misled or just don't know if that's something that they should be concerned about?
I mean, I think if you want your body to remain whole, and that's important to you, again, organ donation is not for you. All funeral requests, and we as a society have gotten quite creative with funerals, over the years, haven't we?
With a lot of things, yeah.
With a lot of things. So all, and I'm here to say all, funeral requests can be honored, and that person can still be an organ donor. And I think that's a large misconception.
Okay.
If they want an open casket, or how does it work with cremation, or whatever the desire,
Sure.
the request is.
Yeah. Okay. Donor families do not pay anything.
Right.
So the other family receiving it would be the ones paying.
So once the donor family, signs all the paperwork to move forward with organ donation, there is no cost to the donor family for the surgical removal of their loved one's organs. It is an operation in an operating room. But if they're trying to decide, or they're not sure, or they're paying.
Yeah.
But once they've made that decision and it's a clear one, then there's no cost to the family.
Okay. We talk to your family about it, that the driver's license alone isn't always enough. But donation decisions are based on strict medical criteria. So I think you must be in a hospital.
Correct.
You cannot be at a car accident.
But I do think that is important to mention, because I don't think a lot of people don't know that. They don't understand that.
Yeah. So do you want to kind of clear up some of that?
Has to be in a hospital setting. So there's 3 types of donors. There's the living donor that volunteers to say, I'm going to help my family member or my friend by donating 1 kidney or a section of their liver, which does grow back, by the way, in like 2 to 9 weeks' time.
I was gonna say, I have some questions about this.
98% of its original size. Livers they don't have the sex appeal that a heart does.
Yeah,
But
right.
if you want an organ, that's the one you want to get, because it's always churning in there. Those cells are always turning over. And what we have found out recently is older donors, and I'm talking about late 80s to 90s, sometimes have been able to donate their liver. Nothing else was good because of their age, but the liver was pristine. So they used to set parameters on age, and they've kind of pulled off of that a little bit.
I wondered about that.
So the living donor, and then the deceased donor would be someone in intensive care who's lost all brain function, but their bodies are healthy. And the last donor is called a DCD donor, which is where they're in intensive care on life support with very small amount of brain activity and no hope for a meaningful recovery. Now, we can sit here all day on this podcast and debate the definition of meaningful recovery. Everybody's got their own thing, their own, what does that feel like for my loved one?
Yeah.
But if someone knows that their loved one does not want to live in a non-meaningful way, they choose to ask to have the machine turned off and removed, and then their heart stops. That's the time of death for them, but because they died in a hospital setting, they could be an organ donor. I think we're up to, it used to be 20% of all donors were DCD donors.
Okay.
I think it's closer to 40 now. It's
interesting.
Quite a lot.
Okay.
And the reason it was kind of low for a while is because not all hospitals understood how to do a DCD donor.
Okay.
So that was part of it, but now more of them have that in place.
Yeah. So I have a friend who lost her husband, and he was in the hospital, and he's an organ donor. And I think at one point she had talked to me about wanting to get in touch with the family. So what organization is facilitating the communication between the 2 families or the 2 individuals? Are you partnered with them? Are you in communication with them?
So that goes back to probably either Midwest Transplant Network, our organ procurement organization, because they're really in charge of that donor, right? Or sometimes they'll reach out to their, what we call transplant coordinate. Oh, no, that'd be on the transplant side. That's the recipient side. The donor side, it would be through Midwest Transplant Network. That would be the best place.
That's
for
just
them
good to know, to kind of have a
No,
name,
that
I
is
think.
good to know.
Yeah.
So they would reach out to them and say, I think I'm ready to correspond potentially with my donor family. Can you help me do that? And they would help them do that.
Got it.
Not
Okay.
an easy letter to write.
Right. No, absolutely not. So for somebody living like myself, are there organs that I can donate today voluntarily just to help the better good of donation? Or is it really more about like when I get to the point of death for myself that I would become, like, back to your point of the liver regenerates or whatever, are there things that I could donate that would just be for the better good
bone
of
marrow.
someone?
Bone marrow is one of them, because you have to be
Okay.
a living donor to donate, of course, bone marrow and blood, both of those.
And cord blood, yeah.
And cord blood
Okay.
as well. And then, of course, the kidney, one kidney or part of your liver, and actually part of a lung can be donated, which
that's
is
wild.
as a living donor, which sounds totally insane.
It does.
But
I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable quite yet with that, but
yeah, because the lobes have a lot of different the lungs have a lot of different lobes to the lung, make it up the lung. So you can take like a section of it.
Yeah.
Pope Francis, who is, deceased, he's a great example, because when he was in his 20s, he had one of his lungs removed, and he lived until his late 80s. Now, he's got God pretty heavy on his side, so I don't,
Sure.
maybe that has something to do with it. I
Yeah.
don't know. But he's like a perfect example of someone who can live a full life.
yeah,
With just
I don't think I
one-
realized that.
One lung, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, so let's go back to your son, who has now, it's been 20,
Yeah, almost 30 years.
almost 30 years. What, what happened immediately after you got, how quickly did you, remind me how quickly you started the nonprofit after you went
Okay.
through it, and then how has he kind of like been involved? Has he been a
Yeah.
spokesperson for anything? He's
Yeah.
here,
Yes.
so we
Yes.
could meet him on the street somewhere, and
Yes,
he's a
you
walking
could.
testament to
Yes,
this.
he is.
Yeah.
He was transplanted in 1996 at 11 months old. He would have died by the age of 2 if he would not have received his liver. And then we had a good year of recovery ahead, because just like Connor's story and Luke's story, the recovery period is at least a year. There's
Okay.
a lot back and forth to the hospital, doctors, testing. I mean, there's still that too, but not like it is right after transplant. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then my husband approached me in about 97 about starting a nonprofit, and then it took us a while to kind of get our head around that. He's a lawyer, so he could do a lot of the
Sure.
work for that.
That's
Someone
nice.
donated accounting services to set up the nonprofit. And so it was in the middle of 1998 is when we had our first board meeting.
Okay. And how did you begin? What were the beginning years like with a nonprofit? Do you have any advice for anyone?
Oh my gosh, that's a whole
Looking to
nother
start a nonprofit.
podcast.
I love having nonprofits on.
I think it's better we knew nothing.
Okay.
We went in pretty naive.
Yeah.
And I
Little
think
scrappy.
real scrappy. I mean, I think our budget was on one little piece of paper. Our first budget was like $7,000 or something, and now our budget's about $800,000 or something.
Sure.
So we've come a long way there. And we really just kind of gathered people around the table for our board of directors to say, we need more people to be educated about organ donation. How do we do that? And the first thing we did is we did establish the first fountain in the country to honor organ donors. It's at the Stowers Institute for Medical Research. And you think in the city of fountains, right, you could build a fountain? No, for God's sake, that took 2 years.
It's even more
2
complicated than you would
years
think.
to do that.
Yeah.
And we were donating the bronze sculpture as the centerpiece. I mean, it's like, come on.
Yeah,
so
it
anyway,
should
we
be a
got that
no-brainer.
done. Anyway, we're celebrating 25 years of that installation this year. And then we sat back and said, what do we do next? And it kind of morphed into the Lifesavers program. And then the mentoring program, we went to Emory in Atlanta. They have a really great mentoring program to learn about it.
Okay.
Came back and said, okay, we'll do something. Let's help 30 families. That sounds good. And I
Sure.
think now we've done over 1,200 families in probably about 28 states, 29 states, something like that.
I mean, do you sit back and just go, we are literally saving lives? Like, this
Well,
is,
that's
you had asked
interesting.
me 40 years ago if
Right.
I thought this was going to be my life path. Like, what do you have to say about that?
I will say that I have left work many times thinking we've saved a life today and we might save another life tomorrow. And how many people can say that about their work? How many people can say that about their life?
Yeah.
Not too many can do that. And so now we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Back to the nonprofit question. You know, you
Sure.
fall down, you learn, you do it better, you know, and we're
That's
still
all
learning.
of us and everything we're doing, right?
We're still learning.
Yeah.
And you know, that's okay as long as you keep learning. But I was telling, we had 3 little 6th graders in this morning to volunteer for us.
Aw.
And I was
I gotta
telling
get my girls in.
darling. And I was talking to him and I said, if you don't learn anything else today, you take this home with you. What seems as possible, oh, it's possible. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And they wrote me a little thank you note and they put that in there. It was so sweet. And that there's a lot of truth to that. I mean,
Yeah, that will leave an impression on them.
as moms, we've walked what seemed impossible.
Yeah.
But look at us. Our kids are vibrant and they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And it is possible. Now, not all transplant outcomes are like ours.
Right.
There are people that don't survive the transplant or they don't live that long after the transplant. So our stories are ongoing, but we're very grateful.
Yeah.
And Luke volunteers for Gift of Life. He's been very involved with. He's one of our ambassadors in the classroom, and he does
Yeah.
a lot of work for us too.
Well, that was a question I had is how can people get involved? So volunteers, donations, do you guys have events? What are all the different things that we can engage with? And, you know, by the way, obviously I'm Kansas City, but then on the world of YouTube, it's people all over the country that will hear this.
Okay,
so
good.
what are the different ways that people can interact in whether in person or digitally, I guess?
Well, so whatever state you live in, you can go to Donate Life and fill in your state, and that will pull up your donor registry for your state.
Okay.
So that's a really important thing if you want to register and be
And
a
I'll
donor.
link that with everything
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah. And then our website is giftdonor.org is our website, which we're getting ready to revamp our whole website very soon. We're very excited. We just got a large contribution to do that, so we're very excited.
Perfect.
And it's overdue. And can you tell I'm excited? I'm very excited about that. Very excited about that.
What's the ETA on that? When do we
Yeah,
expect that to
well, it's
happen?
probably, I bet I'd say a year because
Okay.
we're folding in a lot of components
Sure.
to it. It's going to be a very large project.
Yeah.
And, you know, volunteering, we have a golf tournament in September
Okay.
called Golf for Life, and that was started by a family whose daughter died at the age of 3 waiting for a heart transplant. This is our 17th one.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
pretty sure.
Okay.
We have a thing called the
Established.
Lifesavers Rally, which is bringing high school students together at the University of Rockhurst. That's October. And we do a 2.5-hour workshop for them and have speakers, and that's a really great day. We have Trivia Night. I'll let you talk about Trivia Night.
Trivia Night supports the Transplant Mentors Program. Recently, we've had it at the Armacost Museum, so people can come and sponsor a table, or people in the transplant community can have a table, and it's a really, really fun night
Yeah.
for people to get together that have walked a similar path, who really want to support the mission of Gift of Life.
And our MC for that the last couple of years is Dr. Matt Wilkinson. He's liver kidney transplant surgeon at St. Luke's.
Okay.
And he wanted to do one of the rounds of questions last year. And I'm like, Dr. Wilkinson, these are hard.
Yeah.
And these are really, he goes, oh, they're not that hard. I'm like, these are
He's
really
like, everyone's watching
hard.
the pit these days. You know, everybody's
I was an ER nurse, and they were
amateur.
hard.
Yeah.
really hard.
That's so
They
funny.
were
For
hard.
him, he's like, this is easy. What are you talking about?
But our signature event's coming up next Saturday. It's May 2nd. It's called Go See Do. And
Oh,
you,
right.
You
Okay.
go on one tour. There are 11 tour experiences set up from noon to 1. It might be a wine tasting, Christopher Elbow.
Got my attention.
I mean, we've got breweries. We've got Tom Tivell speaking about jewelry and the One Park Place. I mean, there's a lot of great things. So there's 11 of those from noon to 1.
Okay.
You pick one of those, and then everybody goes to the Grand Hall for a program and auction and live auction, and that's our signature piece. We've done,
Yeah.
I think this is our 23rd Go See Do. The first year we had
Amazing.
3 tours. We netted $10,000. We had 90 people. We were so excited. This year we've got 11 tours. We'll have about 300 and a little over 300 people, and we'll net, I hope, about 180,000, maybe close to $200,000. So that's a really big event for us.
Yeah. Do you guys see you mentioned some of like, you know, the Christopher Elbows of the world? Do you partner with anybody else here that should be mentioned? You've already mentioned KU, St. Luke's, everybody.
No, it's really the hospitals.
Yeah.
We do work with Midwest Transplant Network.
And I saw that they had a Charlie Hustle t-shirt.
Yes, they just had
Yes.
that put out recently.
Yeah, that was this year.
Yes.
I don't know that
yes.
it's still available, unfortunately.
I don't
'cause
think
I went
it
online to go
is.
find
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
maybe if Charlie Hustle has any laying around,
Yeah, they
we
just
can
did
get our hands
that.
on it.
Yes.
Yeah, those are really cool. They do the community teas.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't know how they pick who's doing it or if
Right.
they come to them, but I love that they do that. It's really
Yeah.
good. What, for you guys with this organization, and you joined a few months ago, what is the hope to where you want to continue to take this to? Do you think about, I mean, the cliche 5, 10, 50 years from now, what are you wanting to
let you go
do with
first.
this?
You let me go first. My goal for the Transplant Mentors Program is to continue our outreach and expand the number of hospitals we're dealing with. What's unique about Gift of Life's mentoring program is it's not location specific. Now, certainly people can say they want to be matched with somebody at the same center or the same state, which we attempt to do.
Sure.
Or they might have spiritual considerations. They might want to talk to somebody of the same gender. So we have a whole matching process that we go through. So
Okay.
my goal is to expand the program to as many hospitals as possible, to have a really nice base of mentors, of different types of transplants, so that when we make a match for somebody, it's going to be a really meaningful connection that's made. I interview all of our mentors and get to know them, and as I've taken on the position, I'm reaching out to all of them so that I can get a really good sense of their story, their personality, and then when I get through all the other factors that the mentee is requesting, then I have that really tangible anecdotal information where I can make a really successful match. So that's my goal. We are launching our living donor program this month.
Okay.
And that 20% of our matches last year were actually living donors.
Okay.
And deciding to become a living donor is a huge decision to make.
Yeah.
And so our mentors are very compassionate, understanding, kind of walk people through what the process is like in a very impartial, non-judgmental way, just empowering these people to understand the process and make a meaningful decision for themselves. And so growing that program, we're very excited about. And then making sure that we are being inclusive by ethnicity, different things, so that we're reaching the maximum number of people.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
supporting them. I think, Kim, you can speak to this. I felt it very much when my son went through transplant. Mindset is everything.
Oh, sure.
And what our mentors provide is support that they're not going to get from somebody who hasn't been through the process. They're also going to get somebody who can give them hope. And that, I was once asked what got me through Connor's transplant, and it was hope.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's
That's
what we
really
hope to
all you
And they
got.
can understand that
You really
more.
don't have much of anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really don't, because a lot of it is just you can't control the human body.
So if anyone knows anyone who has been through this, refer them to become a mentor with
Absolutely.
you guys.
Yeah, we get referrals
Obviously.
from transplant centers. Certain mentors are more in demand than others. So with kidney donation being the largest number of transplants that are done, we have a lot of kidney mentors. But certainly like for heart transplant mentors, lung transplant mentors, people who have had dual transplant, like liver, kidney, pancreas,
Okay.
those kind of things. And that's not to say those mentors can't mentor somebody who's had one of those organs transplanted. But sometimes if somebody's facing a double transplant, they'd like to talk with somebody who's been through a similar circumstance.
Wow.
So by trying to strategically recruit mentors as well, so that we have a really diverse population from which to choose to make a really successful match.
This might be a dumb question, but why is kidneys? Why is that the number one? What's behind that?
Go for it.
Or do we know?
It's the most common type of transplant that's done.
But we don't we're not as healthy as a society as we should be.
Yes, that's true.
So, high blood pressure, salty foods,
Yeah.
Medications.
watching your weight, all these things play not that all that happens and that's because,
yeah.
but a lot of it is because, and just taking care of ourselves is part of the reasons why there's a high need.
Yeah,
Okay.
and kidney failure can be secondary to other types of
Yes.
autoimmune conditions.
Okay.
And so somebody will get the autoimmune
Right.
condition. It attacks the kidneys, they're kaput. And so I think that's the biggest reason why kidney would probably be.
I suppose that's a whole other podcast episode to talk about
You've
what
got
we
a
can
lot
do.
of other podcasts off of this one now.
I know,
You got
I do.
a lot of different avenues,
This is
nonprofit.
Bring it on. Bring it on, right?
But I will say, patient-to-patient discussion about a transplant journey is very different than patient to medical professional, and that's why the mentoring is so. We had no one.
That's a good point.
In fact, this was like before the internet was kind of like a thing. I had to
Bringing
go
us
down.
all back.
I told the intern. I spoke at the interns at residents at Children's Mercy recently, and I said, "Now you all are too young to know this, but right where you're standing there, and there's still maybe there was a library at Children's Mercy in the basement, and I had to go down there and look words up. I didn't understand what some of this meant.
Sure.
That's how we were learning.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have anybody. We were the first local family to receive a pediatric liver transplant. The program was very new, and there was a large learning curve.
I bet.
But we did it. That's the point. That's what's important. Is
And
we
here
did
you
it.
are decades later.
Decades, honey.
Yeah.
That's right. Decades and wrinkles later, I'm still here. That's
Love
right.
it, but saving lives. I mean, literally. So
Right.
has that, how has this impacted you guys, just out of curiosity, individually, about how you do look at life and how you think about legacy, or how you think about living every day to the fullest? I mean, what does that look like for you as two who've gone through a difficult
Well,
situation?
that's a really good question. I kind of I'm not a big look in the future person. I'm a big let's deal with what's in front of us person, because that's big enough, right?
Sure.
And so for me, I do embrace every day. I am very grateful that I was in a position, to give back to the community. The community been good to both of us professionally, and so we were kind of really compelled to do this. Most people would get a transplant and say thank you and go on with their life.
Sure.
But that just didn't feel like us. Now, I didn't know that it would be the beast that it has become.
No kidding, yeah.
The good, bad, and the ugly, right? So knowing when I speak to nonprofit classes in the college level, this is a thing that I do sometimes, which I really enjoy that too.
Awesome.
But I do look at life a little differently. I'm just grateful for my life, honestly, in a big bundle. I don't know if you look at yours different. No one's really asked me that question before. That's a good question.
Definitely on the gratitude. I'm immensely grateful. With my son's condition, they pretty much lose every functional ability they have, like sight, hearing, communication, ability to eat, before they fall into a vegetative state and die for that condition. And so I work a lot supporting families with my son's condition. And my son had an opportunity to fight. And I want every child to have the opportunity to fight.
Yeah.
And I think when people have been through an experience like this, some people do want to get through it, and then they want to put as much distance between themselves and what has happened as possible. For me, I find supporting families very healing.
Yeah.
And
I
so
can imagine.
having that ability to talk to someone who's been through it. In my work at Children's Mercy and the Parent Support Program, I can't count the number of times people, we'd engage in a conversation. I'd get referrals to go up to the rooms and we'd chat, and they said, Kirsten, people have given me the names of counselors. They've given me social workers. I want to talk to someone who's been through it.
Right.
And so having that available.
It just makes sense, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and this program began when you started the mentorship program?
Like 2008.
Was anybody else doing anything like that before? Were you guys really the first on the scene?
Here in
to
Kansas City, or you mean nationally?
I guess nationally, but or here too.
There weren't a lot of programs. We did a little digging, and that's when we found that Emory was doing such a great job in Atlanta. So we went out there to kind of pick their brains a little bit. But some of the hospitals, like Stanford, I believe, has their own mentoring program. So there are some of the transplant centers that have their own program, and that's fine. But most of them don't, because they're so busy doing other things.
They are, and I can speak to how busy life gets in the hospital as an ER nurse.
Oh gosh,
dealing
wow,
with Children's Mercy, social workers run off their feet.
Yeah, they're busy.
So they don't necessarily have the time to put all of the effort into what it takes to really recruit quality mentors to be able to make those matches appropriately, I think.
Yeah.
And in addition to having the ability of dealing with so many hospitals nationwide to be able to match circumstances a little bit better. And I think when I did some analysis just in terms of developing the program, and there's about 9 mentoring programs in the country, but some are very location specific, very organ specific. And so I think Gift of Life is uniquely positioned to support families because we do have that diversity and that geographic reach.
That's awesome.
I do want to add one thing, only because if I don't, I'll forget.
Sure, please do.
If there's a listener out there that has a child that is going through a transplant or actually just a medical condition, it's very important to make sure you balance that with your other children. Because this is very difficult for the siblings and for them, because you have to spend so much time with the child that's sick. You don't want them to ever feel forgotten. And I know that can happen. It's happened in our family.
Sure.
And I just want to say that to anybody that's listening. That's a really important thing, even though it seems impossible. We did the best we could at the time, and that's what we all do. We do the best we can at the time, but looking back, I would really put that out on the table.
No, I think you guys probably have so many words of wisdom going through this that, so I appreciate that. I think that's huge. And I think that applies to a lot of family dynamics,
It does.
But in this case, that's a great reminder because you have other children as well.
I've got 15-year-old twin boys. And when we went for transplant, it was COVID, and so we didn't see them for 45 days.
Oh my gosh.
So we were in the hospital, and it does come back where siblings can feel like they didn't get the attention they needed when they needed it. And I remember saying to my boys at one point that, I can love you the same, but I can't always treat you the same, because you are different. And I said, at this particular time, Connor really needed us. I said, there is likely going to come a time in your life where you're really going to need us, and we will be there. But I also apologized to them too, and I said, I know this was hard, and I recognize and own the fact that there's a million things I could have done better. But
and obviously the older they get, the more, of course, they'll realize that.
They do.
Going back to the sixth graders, what do they do when they volunteer?
Well, they helped us put some cards in some envelopes today that we're actually giving away at our fundraiser. So they were there for a couple hours. I think they came in. I think it's Take Your Child to Work Day today. Is that?
Is that what it is?
Did I make that up?
Today. No, you did not make it up. It is today.
So one of our board members is a nurse and does kind of oversees all the nursing for the kidney transplants at KU. And so she brought in one of her daughters and 2 of their friends.
So that's not normally a volunteer type thing for...
No, but there's usually something going on that we can have someone help us with. But we're not too hands-on, in the office, but there are times where we need hands-on in the office.
Okay. Well, I'll just reach back out to you guys, or you reach out to me when there's something like that we can get the word out.
Oh, that's nice.
So,
okay, good.
Okay, so anything else that you guys haven't talked about yet that you want to get the word out about, and then let's just reconfirm kind of that call to action for people to engage and play a part how they can.
Let me think now. Did we cover it all? I think we did. We were excited about the online program. I do want to talk a little bit about that for high school, if there's teachers listening, that we wanted to we tried to pass a law. Well, we actually did pass a law.
Wow.
Now, someone said, Kim, you need to pass a law. I'm like, I don't know how to pass a law. I don't even know
what that entails.
I don't even know what I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what we did is we took our in-person classroom program and we put it into an online format for teachers to use in their classroom, because we can't get to every classroom in the United States of America. So what happened was we wanted to try to pass a law, and we started in Missouri first, to mandate 30 minutes of organ donation education in every public high school and chartered high school in the state. We did not get that. What we got instead was if you ask to have this information presented to a school board, the law states they have to put you on the agenda. They can't tell you no.
Okay.
Well, there's 447 school districts, just saying, in the state of Missouri, and we have 34 to go.
Wow.
We're almost there. You're
really close.
This has been a labor of love, and then COVID got in there and all that.
Dang it,
and
COVID.
so that's been and that's at learnlifesavers.com. Anybody can click on it and use it. It's like a lesson plan. So
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that project.
You should be.
But I wanted to get it to the finish line.
100%.
And I'm just like dragging myself to that finish line.
Well,
But
let's see how we can help with that.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Awesome. Okay, good. Very good. Well, let's just do for fun. You are from Canada.
Yes.
You are from here.
I am.
So totally different. But what do you guys love the most about living and working here?
I'm going to let you go first. I've lived here a long time.
When we got back to Canada after transplant, I wasn't working because I was looking after Connor, and so my husband's had the opportunity of a transfer to the States, and we were given the choice of Texas, Lafayette, Louisiana, and Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay.
And Craig let me choose, and I chose Overland Park, Kansas, and the people here have just been extraordinary to us in every possible way.
Great choice.
Absolutely love it. I've told my husband we're not moving again.
Yay.
We've received extraordinary care at Children's Mercy. They've been Connor's advocate in every possible way.
Yeah.
And I'm immensely grateful for them, that they are stewards of Connor's care. And just the people in Kansas. It's just been the most wonderful experience.
Yeah, that's usually what I hear people. And you and I talked about it. Children's Mercy got a lot of topics and people I'd love to bring in.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be working on that. Yeah.
I think for me, I was born in Western Kansas, but I've lived here since I was 3, and I'm old, so a long time. And then my husband grew up here.
Forever 25.
There
That's
you
what
go.
I say.
That's it.
Yeah.
My husband also was born here and raised here, and we're pretty global people.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the luxury to travel, and
Love it.
we have wide minds, wide lenses, and we always feel good about coming home.
Yeah.
And I think we are one of the best kept secrets. And when people
people
say,
wanna keep it that way.
well, why do you want to go to Kansas? What goes
Yeah.
on in Kansas? I say, have you ever been there? No. Well, then you don't know what you're
Yeah.
missing. And then the people that come, they're so surprised
Yep.
about the treat that's here.
Yeah. We know that moving from out of state. too.
Okay,
It's
where did you
literally,
move from?
We came from Chicago.
Okay, there's
So
a big
people were
city.
like, literally verbatim.
Right.
Like, Kansas?
Right.
Are you excited? You know?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I even got that from people when I told them we were moving to Kansas, and they said, why would you do that?
Right.
And you know how they call it, the flyover states?
Yeah.
I guess
Right.
is what you guys call it. No, Kansas is not.
Which it's so much more on the map than it
absolutely
ever
is.
has been.
Yes,
So I would hope
yes.
people don't talk about it like that anymore. But who knows? They probably
I
still
know,
do.
that's
So-
okay.
Oh, good. Well, this has been super enlightening. And I do think this was such a great opportunity, like I said in the beginning, for me to connect with you guys, to learn what I can do to share with my own family, what, they can play a part in and how we can talk to each other. And so I'm really excited for people to learn more about this and help you guys in any way that they can. And literally, like I said, across the country, specifically here, anyone and everyone. So
Well, we appreciate the opportunity,
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
So, register at Donate Life, whatever state you live in, and as well as sit down and have that conversation about what you want to do or what you don't want to do,
Sure.
because those conversations really matter.
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in and finding inspiration in these incredible stories. If you love what you hear, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a rating, and share the show to help these Kansas City voices reach even more listeners.